Snowpiercer is a sequel to Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. This theory argues that Wilford, the train's creator, is an older Charlie Bucket who inherited the chocolate factory and transformed it into the eternal engine after an environmental catastrophe. Supporters point to striking parallels between the two stories. Both feature a mysterious benefactor controlling a fantastical closed environment. Both involve a selection process where flawed individuals are eliminated one by one. Both have a lower-class protagonist who makes their way forward through different sections. The train cars in Snowpiercer progress from squalor to luxury, just like the factory tour, and Wilford's totalitarian control mirrors Wonka's absolute authority over his domain. The theory notes that both stories feature a reveal where the leader was testing someone to inherit their creation. Wilford's engine, like Wonka's factory, operates on seemingly impossible physics and contains entire ecosystems within its walls. The theory gained traction after director Bong Joon-ho admitted in interviews that he was inspired by the class allegory in Roald Dahl's original novel. The color palettes of both films shift from gray poverty to vibrant excess. Both stories feature authority figures who've isolated themselves from the outside world for decades, creating self-sustaining systems that require human labor to function. The sauna car, school car, and aquarium car in Snowpiercer mirror the absurdist rooms in Wonka's factory. Most compelling to supporters is the shared theme of using children as the answer. In Wonka, Charlie's purity makes him the heir. In Snowpiercer, small children are needed to maintain the engine's most crucial components. The theory suggests that after inheriting the factory, Charlie witnessed environmental collapse and built the train using Wonka's technology, but the years of isolation corrupted his original innocent nature into Wilford's brutal pragmatism. E.T. Universe. E.T. and Star Wars exist in the same universe. In Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, released in 1999, a delegation of E.T.'s species appears in the Galactic Senate chamber during the vote of no confidence scene. The creatures are visible for several seconds, identical to E.T.'s design, with elongated necks and distinctive head shapes. When E.T. watches a child wearing a Yoda Halloween costume in the 1982 original film, he becomes excited and reaches toward the child, saying, "Home." Fans argue this indicates E.T. recognized Yoda's species from his own galaxy. The theory suggests E.T.'s people are part of the Republic, and the film takes place in the Star Wars galaxy's far future or distant past, with E.T. becoming stranded millions of light years from home. Steven Spielberg and George Lucas's close friendship adds credibility to the theory. Lucas included the E.T. species as a deliberate Easter egg tribute to Spielberg's film, and Spielberg returned the favor by having Elliot's brother wear a Boba Fett costume and including Star Wars action figures in E.T.'s toy collection. The species was named Asogians in official Star Wars reference materials, and their home planet Brodo Asogi appears in expanded universe content. In E.T., the alien demonstrates Force-like abilities, including telekinesis, healing, empathic connections, and possibly telepathy. His glowing finger and resurrection mirror force powers seen throughout Star Wars. The theory proposes that E.T.'s mission to Earth was a Republic expedition gone wrong, or that he was fleeing Imperial forces, explaining why his people never returned for him and why government agents aggressively hunted him. Joker background. The Joker in The Dark Knight is former military, possibly special forces. Despite claiming he has no plan and is an agent of chaos, the Joker demonstrates expert combat skills, tactical planning, and weapons knowledge that suggests extensive training. He disarms and fights multiple opponents simultaneously using efficient techniques, showing muscle memory from years of practice. His bank robbery in the opening sequence displays military-level coordination with precise timing and backup plans. The school bus blending into the convoy required exact choreography and inside knowledge. When he attacks the fundraiser, he clears rooms systematically using suppressive fire patterns. His interrogation resistance techniques, including the one-way glass performance, indicate SCIU training or similar programs. The Joker's most damning evidence comes from his weapons expertise and strategic thinking. He constructs complex explosive devices, coordinates multiple simultaneous operations across Gotham, and demonstrates knowledge of police procedures and response times. His ambush of the SWAT team shows understanding of tactical formations. The hospital demolition required sophisticated knowledge of structural engineering and controlled demolitions. When he turns Harvey Dent, he demonstrates advanced psychological warfare techniques taught to intelligence operatives. The theory suggests he served in Iraq or Afghanistan, witnessed atrocities that broke his faith in order and justice, and returned with severe PTSD that manifested as nihilistic terrorism. His scars and constantly changing stories about their origin could indicate combat wounds he's ashamed to discuss honestly. The makeup becomes war paint, and Gotham becomes his new battlefield where he applies his lethal skills against the society that created him. His goal isn't chaos, but exposing the truth he learned in war, that civilization is a thin veneer easily stripped away. Toy Story secret. Andy's mom is Emily, the original owner of Jessie the Cowgirl. When Andy's mom brings Jessie home from the yard sale in Toy Story 2, fans noticed she wears a red hat with a white stripe, identical to the hat young Emily wears in Jessie's flashback sequence during When She Loved Me. The theory gained support from timeline analysis. Emily appears to be in her late teens or early 20s when she gives Jessie away, which occurs during the late 1960s or early 1970s based on the song's release and the fashion. This would make her approximately the right age to be Andy's mother in the mid-1990s when the film takes place. Jessie was donated in a box under a tree, similar to how Andy's mom stores old toys in the attic. The emotional weight of the When She Loved Me sequence hits differently if Andy's mom has her own abandoned childhood toy in the attic. Geographic and circumstantial evidence supports the connection. Andy's family lives in an unnamed American suburb that could easily be where Emily grew up. The yard sale where Jessie was sold takes place in their neighborhood, suggesting Emily's parents sold her belongings locally. Andy's mom never appears with any relatives or discusses her family, which could indicate estrangement after she abandoned her childhood. When Andy donates his toys at the end of Toy Story 3, he gives them to a young girl, potentially breaking the cycle of abandonment his mother started. The theory adds tragic irony. Emily's son formed a deep bond with toys, just like she did, but she never realized her childhood companion was in the attic the whole time. Jessie spent decades in storage, then ended up in the home of her original owner's son, coming full circle. If true, this explains why Andy's mom was comfortable buying vintage cowgirl merchandise at a yard sale, and why she kept so many childhood items in storage, rather than discarding them completely. Matrix Zion. Zion is another level of the Matrix, not the real world. This theory argues that the machines created Zion as a pressure release valve to contain rebels who reject the simulation, keeping them pacified in a second layer they believe is reality. Neo's ability to destroy Sentinels with his mind in the real world at the end of Reloaded suggests he's still within a program where his powers function. When he falls into a coma and appears in the train station, the program represents an intermediate space between Matrix levels. The architect reveals that this is the 6th version of the Matrix, and previous cycles ended with Zion's destruction and rebuilding. This pattern suggests Zion itself is part of the machine's design, not a genuine human resistance. The evidence becomes more compelling when examining the broader system. The architect explains that the Matrix fails when humans are given perfect paradise or harsh reality, but succeeds when people are given choice. Zion represents that choice, the option to reject the Matrix and feel they've escaped to reality. The machines allow Zion to exist, permitting humans to free a small number of minds while keeping billions enslaved. The prophecy of the One is machine-generated code designed to give rebels hope and purpose, directing their resistance into predictable patterns. Each one before Neo chose to reload the Matrix and select survivors to rebuild Zion, perpetuating the cycle. The machines wouldn't allow a genuine threat to exist. They'd allow a controlled opposition that reinforces the larger system. Neo's wireless connection to machines, Trinity's resurrection through his touch, and his ability to perceive Machine City while blind all indicate his powers transcend the single Matrix layer. The war, prophecy, and struggle are themselves programmed to give freed minds meaning, ensuring even those who escape remain under machine control through a more sophisticated deception. Up Heaven. Carl Fredricksen died at the beginning of Up, and everything after is his journey to heaven. After Ellie's death, Carl becomes increasingly isolated and depressed. When he strikes the construction worker with his cane and receives the court order to move to a retirement home, he appears to have a heart episode, clutching his chest before deciding to fly away. The theory suggests he died in that moment, and his balloon house journey represents his soul's ascent to Paradise Falls, which literally represents paradise. Russell serves as his guardian angel or guide, appearing mysteriously to accompany Carl on his spiritual journey. The house, floating with only party balloons, defies physics so completely that it can only be explained as metaphysical rather than physical. The evidence throughout the film supports a heavenly interpretation. Carl encounters his childhood hero, Charles Muntz, who died decades earlier but now exists in this realm. The talking dogs represent Carl's idealized childhood imagination made real. Kevin, the rare bird Muntz obsessively hunted, tests Carl's character. Will he prioritize selfish promises to a dead wife or protect living innocence? By saving Kevin and Russell, Carl proves his soul's worthiness to complete the journey. When the house finally lands on the exact cliff overlooking Paradise Falls that Ellie marked in her adventure book, it represents Carl reaching his destination and earning his place in paradise. The house drifts away at the end because Carl no longer needs it. He's found his purpose in choosing life and love over death and isolation. Russell becomes Carl's successor, wearing Carl's Ellie badge, symbolizing how Carl's spirit lives on. The film's message about honoring the dead while embracing the living makes perfect sense as a story about a man's final journey, choosing to help others even in death rather than remaining bitter and alone. Pulp Fiction's soul. The briefcase in Pulp Fiction contains Marcellus Wallace's soul. Throughout the film, the briefcase's contents are never revealed, only that they glow golden and leave everyone who sees them awestruck. The combination to open the briefcase is 666, the biblical number of the beast. Marcellus Wallace has a mysterious band-aid on the back of his neck throughout the entire film. The theory connects these elements through the medieval belief that the devil extracts human souls through the base of the skull. Marcellus sold his soul to the devil and the briefcase contains it. When Ringo and Yolanda open the briefcase in the diner, they're stunned into submission not by money or jewels, but by seeing a human soul's divine glow. This interpretation reframes the entire film as a morality play about sin and redemption. Jules experiences a miracle when bullets miss him in Brett's apartment, which he interprets as divine intervention. His recitation of Ezekiel 25:17 transforms from threat to genuine spiritual awakening. Jules decides to walk the earth like Cain in Kung Fu, leaving his life of sin. Vincent dismisses the miracle as coincidence and continues in sin, leading directly to his death. The theory suggests Jules was chosen to return Marcellus's soul, explaining why the bullets missed him but not Vincent. Marcellus being in the spirit business takes on literal meaning. His rape in the pawn shop represents complete degradation of a soulless man. When Butch saves Marcellus, he earns forgiveness and freedom despite breaking their arrangement, suggesting Marcellus recognized the value of Butch's selfless act. The briefcase glows like a halo because it contains something sacred. Tarantino's choice to never reveal the contents becomes meaningful. Some mysteries should remain divine rather than mundane. Wizard allegory. The Wizard of Oz functions as an allegory for atheism and self-empowerment over religious authority. Throughout the film, Dorothy and her companions seek an all-powerful wizard to grant their wishes, only to discover he's a fraud hiding behind curtains and special effects. This mirrors how religious skeptics view organized religion, impressive pageantry masking ordinary humans claiming divine authority. The wizard admits he's just a man from Kansas who accidentally ended up in Oz and used tricks to make people think he was powerful. Each character's journey reveals they already possessed what they sought. The Scarecrow demonstrates intelligence throughout. The Tin Man shows compassion and emotion. The Lion displays courage repeatedly. They didn't need the wizard's validation, they needed to recognize their inherent worth. The film's message directly challenges religious dependency. Glinda the Good Witch tells Dorothy at the end that she always had the power to go home, but needed to learn it for herself. This represents self-discovery over blind faith in external authority. The wizard's elaborate throne room, with fire and booming voice, represents religious institutions, intimidating rituals, and claims to power. When Toto pulls back the curtain, it symbolizes questioning authority and discovering the truth behind religious mystery. The wizard doesn't actually grant anything to Dorothy's companions. He gives them placebo tokens while they realize they always had these qualities. Similarly, the theory argues, people don't need religious institutions to be good or complete. The yellow brick road represents following dogma without questioning. The Emerald City looks green, only because everyone wears green-tinted glasses, showing how religious framework colors perception. Dorothy's return to Kansas in black and white after Oz's Technicolor adventure suggests rejecting fantasy for reality, choosing earthly life over supernatural promises. By the way, if you're finding this interesting, I post videos like this all the time. Subscribing would really help me out.